Hello everyone, Tyler here for Run Route Recon KC, and we're back after about 5 years hiatus. We decided to come back to the wide world of content creation. For those of you that are new here, welcome. For those that remember us from back in the Run Ride Review days, welcome back. We'll look a little bit different compared to 5 years ago. For one, we'll primarily now be video based, obviously, rather than the written race previews from before. You'll get to see on the run video previews for several of Kansas City and the Midwest's bigger and better known run events. We'll also still be bringing run race reports with in-race videos for some of the bigger events just around the area in general. So for example, we just got back from Chicago. It'd be kind of cool to do a Chicago Marathon race report sometime in the future. Just registered for the lottery, so fingers crossed, hopefully we'll be able to bring you one in 2023. For all of this and more, navigate to runroutereconkc.com or visit us on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok at runroutereconkc. And without further ado, let's get into our first preview back from the dead. And man, what appropriate language to use, because it's Halloween season nowadays. And the first race is going to be the Spooky Sprint Half Marathon, brought to you by Bodies Race Company here in the Kansas City area. This event usually takes place the last Sunday in October. It also includes a 10K and 5K option, which all start and finish at Metropolitan Community College at Longview. Before we get started, some disclaimers. This preview is for the 2022 route, though final course details are subject to change and of course all up to the discretion of the race organizers. This preview is based off of the posted race course on the official website, so kind of keep that in mind as well, that things could change from there. For all the final details on and around race weekend, such as packet pickup and the race start times, please do visit the official race website, which will be posted in the link description. Now on to the course itself. This course is, of course, an out and back 13.1 mile run, again starting and finishing at MCC at Longview, along View High Drive in Lee Summit, Missouri. It runs along the outskirts of Longview Lake and features both blacktop as well as very fine crushed limestone trails, which we'll talk about once we get to the videos. It's also relatively open and exposed to the elements, at least off the trails it is. So this last weekend I did a whole bunch of videos for both Longview Half Marathon as well as the Spooky Sprint. And it was quite windy, 25-mile-an-hour sustained winds and 45-mile-an-hour gusts, and especially along View High Drive and of course the Dam Road, or 109th Street 119th Street Parkway, I believe it is. Very exposed to the elements, and the winds were awful. So if there is any wind whatsoever on race day, just keep that in mind, that you may be fighting those in either direction, because you're exposed to the elements both north, south, east, and west. The course is not terribly hilly, though it's not terribly flat either. Of course, Kansas City run events and races typically misconstrued as flat, and they are not. We have quite a bit of hills around here in the Kansas City area. Includes about 450 feet of elevation gain, and the good majority of that is at the closer to the start-finish area, so keep that in mind as well. So let's get on to the video itself. This year's 2022 Spooky Sprint Half Marathon. It's pretty, but man, is it windy.
And we are up and running. Historically, the start-finish line has been a little bit further back in the parking lot on what's called Sally Road, the road that we're just leaving right now, in fact. This year, at least on this year's map, it's showing right at the corner of Sally and Long Road, the road that we're on right now. So kind of keep that in mind before getting to the start line on Sunday morning. There's a good chance it could actually be further back than what the map says and what we're showing here on the video. You will also notice that there is a lot of elevation gain pretty quickly right out of the gate. As a matter of fact, a good majority of the elevation gain that you're going to see on this route is within the first about mile and a half and the last mile and a half. So there's a little bit of a gain coming off of Metropolitan Community College at Longview. There's kind of a false flat right here all the way up to View High Drive. And then we have another false flat between this road, Long Road, and 109th Street across the dam along View High Drive. Also, and we kind of mentioned this a little bit before, this is exposed to the elements. So right here, north-south breezes, you will feel those right here. Once you get onto View High Drive, which we're getting ready to go into right now, a wind from any direction is going to affect you. So keep that in mind when you are on your way outbound. You may have a wind at your back if the wind is coming out of the south, but know that you'll have to face that coming back. And of course, it's always worse in the late morning and on into the afternoon here in the Midwest. Notice the false flat here, and then finally, once we get to the top of this false flat, flattens out a little bit, and then we finally get our first descent of the entire course onto 109th Street or across the dam. Onto 109th Street, Dam Road, and one of the best parts of the course is going across the dam here. Can also be a little bit bittersweet given the fact that when you get across the dam, you're probably going to face some of the strongest winds of the entire course. As we get onto 109th Street, you're going to get a little bit of a descent. It's quite a strong hill, in fact, no matter how short it actually is in the grand scheme of things. And you are once again going to have to face that, followed by a false flat on the way back, so keep that in mind. Similar to getting onto the dam, coming off the dam, also a little bit of a hill. This one's not quite as robust as the other one on the east side of the hill, or the east side of the dam road, but it still is there. It is longer, and it's about the same amount of elevation gain. So a little bit tough coming off of it like we are right now, a little bit easier getting on to 109th Street using this hill. It gives you a little bit of a speed boost. On the southbound Raytown Road, and this is one of the longest sections of the entire race. Also a little bit of wind here too that can kind of mess with you, especially given how long the stretch is. But it's not quite bad as View High Drive because you do have some trees kind of strewn throughout the section to help buffet the wind a little bit. But it is there. Make sure you do appreciate it. And when it comes to spring and fall races, us in the Kansas City area, we tend to have quite a bit of winds. We of course are on the west side of Longview Lake, and on the west side of Longview Lake there are three at least major roads that lead to a few shelters around the lake, and this is the southernmost one for shelters 10 and 11. Pay no attention to the gate. That, of course, will be open on race day. Still blacktop, still fairly smooth road, not really much elevation gain to be had. However, we are coming up on some crushed limestone. There's not too much on this course, at least compared to some of the other races in Longview Lake, such as the Longview Half Marathon or the Great Plains 10K, but there is a section of crushed limestone to kind of keep in mind, with actually a patch of concrete in between.
That's where it gets interesting. Turning off of the blacktop and onto crushed limestone. Weird at first, great when you're running on it because it's soft, and a pain in the ass when you come off it because all of a sudden you're on blacktop again.
And of course, this is one of the few sections of crushed limestone. There's a little bit of concrete between here and the turnaround, but at this point we're right about just past 8K, and we'll be on crushed limestone until the turnaround, and then we come back until about 8 miles. So about 3 miles of crushed limestone, give or take, and just a touch of concrete.
You may get the occasional stone in your shoe too, so be forewarned. Any wind that you had on Braytown Road, not really going to get in here. The trees kind of buffer any wind that's taking place, which is nice today. So we got 20-mile-an-hour winds, 40-mile-an-hour gusts. It's terrible. 2 reasons individuals come to Longview. They run across the Longview Dam, and especially in the fall, these trees. My gosh, it's gorgeous in here. Just live it up. It's really quite beautiful. Now, obviously out here, I don't have course monitors and aid stations, so the turnaround for Spooky Sprint, not going to be able to show you that, but I will show you a nice marker that lets you know that's coming up pretty quick. a bridge. First one, you go over. Second one, you go under. And then you have a little bit of distance to the turnaround. And then it's an exact reverse of your outbound. So out and back for the spooky sprint. Easy peasy.
The northbound trek on Little Blue Trail, again, a reverse of the outbound. So you're familiar with all these routes by now, familiar with all the trails. Everything's gonna look familiar at this point.
Coming up to the end of the crushed limestone. This is where, after some time on the soft crushed gravel or limestone, now you gotta go onto blacktop.
Back into the parking lot for shelters 10 and 11. And at this point, we're right about 8 miles into the race, so only 5 miles to go. A little bit further up on the northbound track up Raytown Road, and we're probably about 10 miles in at this point, getting ready to turn back on 109th Street or the Dam Road. 2.5 miles to go roughly, and prep the legs, because this is where winds start to really come into play across the dam, and we have some false flats on the View High Drive, and then the payoff that we had from the beginning of the race and all those false flats and hills, we're going to have a nice downhill straight to the finish. Hang in there. For me, we're approaching about 12 miles now. This is where things really get sticky. We have a trio of small little bumps before we come off the dam, and the very last bump is kind of puts a sting in the legs. It's a short hill. It's not the tallest hill, but it is a little bit steep, and at this point in the race, it's pretty rough. Once again, we still have the winds to deal with too, especially back onto View High Drive. Once we come past this hill, we're onto that View High Drive, and it is a false flat, so you're going to have to kind of continue climbing a little bit. Save a little bit for the tank. We still have a little bit left to go. We're still dealing a little bit with the winds here on View High Drive, but we are right about half a mile to go, and we're kind of at the top of things. From here on out, it's pretty much downhill to the finish, especially once we get on to Longview Community College. We really have a steep decline all the way through to the finish. And here we are at the finish. Once again, historically, the finish line has been around the corner, so we're going to show you that real quick. But everybody on Sunday, have a great race. Thank you so much for joining us here for this race preview of the 2022 Spooky Sprint Half Marathon. Thank you so much again for joining us. For all race previews and reports, visit us at runroutereconkc.com, and we will see you next time.